What evil prank have you pulled off? Two of my friends have never met each other. Before they spoke, I told both of them that the other is a bit deaf. They shouted at each other for a few minutes before they realized that I'm an asshole. My mum's laptop wallpaper was a picture of her granddaughter. I copied the picture 100 times and made her wallpaper a slideshow of the same picture over and over again, so the file would change but nothing would change visibly on the monitor. The pictures would change every 10 seconds. On one of the images I painted a tiny little curly mustache on her. So randomly for 10 seconds my niece would have a mustache. My mum thought she was either losing her mind or had a computer virus, and every time the mustache popped up, it was gone by the time she tried to show anyone. I did something similar to a college friend. I replaced a single system sound file, the click for the mouse, with a 5-minute version. It started off identical, followed by 4 minutes and 50 seconds of silence, but at the end, it had me screaming. Now if another system sound would play, it stopped playing the previous sound. So he would use his computer, and then when he would walk away, it might scream 5 minutes later. One summer in college, I worked in the registrar's office, registering all the incoming freshmen. A professor who was a mentor to me was teaching freshman seminar and asked me to hand-pick a class for her. Straight A students, high SATs, whatever. So I did. 15 students, all named Sarah. I saw a post about switching around mayo and vanilla pudding, emptied out a mayo jar and cleaned it well, filled it with a few pots worth of vanilla pudding and took it to uni. Our uni is very lax about eating during the lectures, so I waited until midday when I was sitting in the middle of all my friends and they were all eating their lunch. Cue me taking out the jar of mayo and a spoon, popping the lid and taking a big old spoonful with a grin. At first only the closest ones noticed, but after the third spoon it was like everyone was frozen around me. Pin drop silence. After the fifth spoon someone faux-retched and the spell was broken. The looks of sheer terror and disgust was well worth the pain of eating vanilla pudding. I'm a chocolate kinda gal. I did the same thing at one of my final exams. However, I didn't have enough vanilla pudding and had to use 1 box worth of butterscotch pudding, to the 3 boxes of vanilla. The result looked like mayo that had been left in a hot car in the Nevada desert for weeks on end. It looked horrific, it even looked disgusting to my roommates, and they knew the truth. I sat down in the front row, pulled the jar out of my backpack, and started ferociously shoveling it into my mouth. The guy next to me looked over in shock. I hear someone behind me ask what the fuck is wrong with that guy. I turn around, still shoveling pudding into my mouth, and grin. I continued for about 5 minutes until even I couldn't stomach the thought of eating anymore. The people around me gave me a look of disdain and fear as I left, never having told them that it was not, in fact, mayonnaise. When my brother and I were in middle school, my brother liked to skateboard with our next door neighbor. One day, my brother and the neighbor took the sheet of plywood from under my brother's upper bunk bed, no one slept in the upper bunk, out of the house, and started making a skateboard ramp out of it in the neighbor's adjacent yard. My parents had explicitly told him that he wasn't allowed to do that. Now, in my defense, my brother teased me unmercifully, to the point of tears, on multiple occasions, so keep in mind that he had had it coming for a long time. Anyway, an evil little plan hatched in my brain. I ran to the upstairs window and yelled down at them, "Brother's name, guess what? Mom knows everything and she is so mad." Then I slammed the window shut and ran to the stairs and waited while watching my mom read the newspaper. A few moments later, my brother walks in the front door looking worried and says, "Mom, I'm so sorry." My mom, who had no idea what was going on, said, "About what?" while slowly putting the newspaper down. "For making a skateboard ramp out of the wood from the bunk bed." "You did what?" At that moment, a wave of shock and realization swept across my brother's face and our eyes met. I let out the biggest evilest little sister cackle and ran into my room. We are adults now and still laugh about it from time to time. One night I replaced every framed object in my boss's office with a picture of me making a stern face. Posters, certificates, photos, etc. took like 3 hours because he had like 30 framed things in his office. The next day I made sure I was out doing field work to make him sit with it most of the day. He had a lot of foot traffic to look at his office that day. I worked in an office that had 4 offices with shared partitions that had glass at the top. My neighbor wasn't the most observant person and kind of a dick, so I started printing random pictures like Nicolas Cage and setting them on my side of the office facing into his. He never noticed. It got to the point where everyone else in the office would check what photo I had set that week, but he never caught on. I farted under the covers, then pointed at the ceiling above my GF and shouted "Spider." So she'd throw the blankets over her head. Later when she told her parents, that turned out to be the thing that earned her dad's respect for me. Made him laugh so hard he needed an inhaler. Not me, but a story my mom used to tell on my dad. I don't know what it was about my dad's digestive system, but anything he ate comes out smelling bad. Really bad. As in, after he was in the bathroom no one else could go in there for at least a half hour longer if he forgot to open the window. Honestly, the smell would gag a maggot. Heaven forbid you be the one mom sent in there to open the window when he forgot. One night dad came home from work, night shift, got in bed, stuck his butt out of the covers and passed a really rancid one, then pulled the covers up over his head so he didn't have to smell it. But what he didn't know was that mom had eaten something for supper that was just as noxious on its way out. She waited till he got his head under the covers and got a good seal on it, and let one rip. She said he came out from under those covers like a shot, gagging the whole time. I used to work at a science tutoring center when I was in college and my gap year before professional school. One of the things we taught very often was anatomy. So naturally we acquired a few skeletons and various skulls with some variation in how they looked or were marked, etc. Well, I was closing one night, and I knew my coworker was opening the next morning early, so before I locked up I assorted all of the skeletons and skulls in a welcome party near the front door. I had one immediately at the opening of the only door into the room with several backup skeletons and skulls just behind at a table together watching on. The best part was that you have to turn on the lights manually and that switches immediately to the side of the door opening, so when she reached down to turn on the lights she had to come face to face with some lifeless skeleton skull in the middle of the shady opening. Needless to say she screamed, and it was loud enough to make our boss come to see if she was okay. Woke up to some colorful texts Lamau. Still proud of that one honestly. At my sister's swim meet, I found an ice machine tucked away in a garage-looking thing. So I started collecting the ice and somehow managed to put ice in nearly everyone's shoe at the meet. It was a wild, beautiful moment of pure confusion and chaos. Everyone started freaking out and no one knew it was the little shy girl who secretly enjoyed turmoil. Working in a hot factory, supervisor and job planner in this enclosed cubicle with a window AC unit in the middle of the shop, aka nice 68 in there while we sweat our ass off in 95 to 110 F heat. Kinda hot and pissy and always flies around. I kept grabbing the flies alive, walking into the cubicle to ask a usually legit question or say I'm just cooling off and opening my hand behind my back. I put 14 of those fuckers in there in one shift. He never did catch on I was doing it and the planner was pissed swatting around, there were so many flies in there. Supervisor was cleaning out every crevice thinking some food is supporting life now somewhere. Dude was harassing my ex because he used to have her cell phone number. Was being a real fucking creep. Anyways, I created an email address, signed up to Kijiji and placed an ad offering an 80 inches 3D TV for free with some excuse about a bad breakup and not wanting her to get it. I asked people to only text or call. I then went to bed and forgot all about it until the next day at work I get a text from my ex asking if I had done something on Kijiji. The dude was begging her to take the ad down and apologizing. I checked the email and there were 5 pages of responses even though I had told them not to email but to call or text. Dude's phone must have been ringing constantly. I took the ad down and she never heard from him again. I've done something similar. My friend called a for rent sign on a lawn and got yelled at by the guy who answered because she called after hours. It was like 6:30 p.m. His online ad said strict instructions for when to call, but his sign, obviously, said nothing. She was really rattled by it. She told me what happened the next day and I got really angry. I considered calling him and yelling at him but decided to hit him where it hurts. I made an ad on Craigslist for a free car which just needed a new battery. Put up a couple old Honda Civic pictures I found online and put instructions to please only call after 8 p.m. as I do shift work. Screw that guy. People in school used to always take my Gatorade. So I took an empty bottle, filled it with dyed salt water, and let them take my drink. Not gonna lie, it was hilarious watching one person to spit salt water in the middle of class only for their unbelieving friend to do the same. I used to work for a cruise line. A passenger asked if the crew lives on the ship full time. I and my co-worker explained that no, the crew leaves every night to fly back to Miami and then returns each morning. She walked away satisfied. After that cruise was over, our manager was sharing the passenger evaluations with us and was confused about one in particular. It was a woman who had stayed on deck 14 and had complained that she couldn't sleep at night because of the noise of the crew helicopter. Fact 1, 1,200 crew do not leave every night but do live on the ship. Fact 2, that ship didn't even have a helipad. Question, WTF was she hearing every night? Not a prank I pulled off, but one I was victim to. My manager had left me in charge of the store when I was 16, not legal but that's a whole other mess, for a whole weekend. Saturday went well and I was happy with how I went, although my paranoid brain is always concerned about whether or not doors are actually locked. I'm the same with my house, but the store was worse. So I make my dad drive down to the store to double check that everything is okay. 15 minutes later I get a phone call from him saying, "Manager, and the police are here because the door was unlocked and people were inside." Cue to me on the floor in tears hyperventilating, while my dad is telling my mum, who had since picked up the phone, that he was only kidding and that everything was fine. My freshman year of high school, the big craze at my school was this 50-pack of Crayola markers. I'd quite exactly, but fads are fads. A friend of mine had a pack that she was obsessed with. She had them organized in the pack in like a perfect color gradient order. So of course anytime she left the room I'd mix her markers up, so she had to fix them when she came back. This went on for a month maybe. And one day in study hall she leaves and before she leaves turns to me and she says, "Don't rearrange my fucking markers." So I didn't. I rearranged the caps. You see, these markers were solid white apart from the caps and a little tiny nib at the other end. She got about halfway through fixing them when she noticed she was holding a marker with an orange cap and a turquoise nib. I can't tell you the joy I experienced when she looked at me and said, "You didn't even move the markers, did you?" I laughed so hard I was asked to leave the study hall. She didn't talk to me for 2 weeks. 100% worth it.
So many memories, do you remember these moments way back in the time? Trapped at the back of my mind, I am so happy to grind, I am so happy to find so much experience now that I'm passing the lines, now that I'm grasping the signs. I have been laughing a lot, got nothing to hide, no I got nothing to hide, bitch I am stuck left behind, I need to drive, yeah I need something to ride, build my own bank account, shit that I'm making, now putting it off to the side, feeling the vibe, got this new sorrowful happiness that I just can't seem to guide.